come from a background like millions of others. Troubled financial circumstances led to my family losing our home and put me on the streets at the age of 15, where I got involved with a street organization, aka gang, to survive. By the time I was 17 years old, I was locked down in an adult maximum security prison, sentenced to serve many years behind the wall of the hellholes of the American prison system. Like too many other youth, the system offered me no greater purpose and no better fate than crime and punishment, a future of living and dying for nothing. Once I was locked down behind the walls, I soon started to question what brought me, and all the other people there with me, to prison. And as conditions became more repressive, I began to develop an understanding of the historical forces that led all of us into the horrendous conditions of the American prison system. Within a few years, I was placed in segregation, solitary confinement, for an indeterminate period of time, and faced the prospect of languishing in isolation devoid of human contact in a concrete tomb until my release. It was in the midst of this, the pepper spray choking the whole cell house, the tactical team stomping down the gallery to drag someone out of their cell and beat them down, the constant agony of men straining against a solitude crying out for some kind of conversation or contact, that I first read Revolution newspaper. Prisoners' Revolutionary Literature Fund, which for more than 20 years has provided donated subscriptions to Revolution and other revolutionary literature to hundreds of prisoners across the U.S., sent me a donated subscription. And Revolution began to open my eyes to a whole other way that society could be organized, and a whole other way of thinking. Instead of focusing intently on revenge and my own personal oppression or wrongs, I began to see that this capitalist imperialist system is fundamentally based on the exploitation and oppression of the vast majority of humanity at the hands of the few within the ruling class who own and control the means of production, and that the basis exists to emancipate all of humanity from the oppressive relations of class society and unleash people to flourish in ways undreamed of under the confines of this capitalist system. Nearly 2.5 million men, women, and children are imprisoned in an unrivaled and unparalleled racist gulag that stretches like a razor-wire scar across this so-called land of the free. The U.S. imprisons more people than any other country in the world. 1 in 8 young black men are locked up here, a higher rate of incarceration for black men than apartheid South Africa. And more women are incarcerated in America than anywhere else on the planet. The vast majority of prisoners are warehoused for years in conditions devoid of any meaningful human contact, forced to endure constant threats and abuse from the guards, and denied access to educational opportunities. Tens of thousands are held in extreme isolation and sensory deprivation in supermax and segregation units, conditions that amount to torture straight up. Despite these crushing, degrading, and dehumanizing conditions, there is a deep desire among prisoners broadly to understand the world and their place in it. Prisoners deserve a life of the mind and an opportunity to dig into the ideas and world events that fill the pages of Revolution newspaper, as well as to engage and debate philosophy, science, and key questions of the day, along with the path-breaking work of re-envisioned communism of Bob Avakian's New Synthesis. A liberating and lofty vision of a whole other future for humanity unfolds for prisoners as they begin to engage with Revolution newspaper, the works of Bob Avakian, and other revolutionary literature. Just read some of the moving and eloquent letters from the prisoners on PRLF's website, or watch some of the dramatic readings of them on YouTube for a glimpse of the transformative power that revolution can have. They begin to become part of changing the world as they change themselves. People that the system has written off as worthless, some of the so-called worst of the worst, are beginning to break out of the dog-eat-dog, I-gotta-get-mine mentality, making a radical rupture with the oppressive ideas and relations of capitalism, and transforming themselves into emancipators of humanity. So here's a challenge to you. Every month I'm going to adopt a subscription to Revolution newspaper for a prisoner to make sure that these brothers and sisters can continue to receive revolution and that more can begin to take up its liberating vision. Join me in making that commitment. Every issue of Revolution that gets behind the walls has a far greater impact than reaching just each individual prisoner who receives a subscription. Revolution is a lifeline for many prisoners, passed hand to hand and cell to cell, as prisoners read, discuss, and debate its liberating ideas within the deepest depths of the most oppressive dungeons that this system has devised. And as they begin to transform themselves, the prisoners' voices can pose a powerful challenge and inspiration to others from behind the walls. From shattering the demonizing and most times nakedly racist caricature that the rulers of this system paint about criminals and prisoners, to challenging the youth caught up in the street life to get up out of that bullshit and into the revolution. Each one-year subscription to Revolution for a Prisoner costs $35. If you have the means, adopt more than one subscription per month. There are over 300 prisoners already waiting to get subscriptions. And if you don't have the means, ask a few of your friends to throw in and collectively adopt a subscription together. Also, donate more to the ongoing work of PRLF, which not only includes sending subscriptions to Revolution newspaper and other revolutionary literature into prisoners, but is currently engaged in fighting a major battle against censorship and the banning of Revolution in California and other prisons. And join hundreds of others opposed to censorship of literature in prisons by signing the Overturn the Ban statement. So join me in taking up the challenge of adopting one subscription to Revolution a month for a prisoner, and together we can ensure that hundreds of brothers and sisters locked down in the hellholes of America's prison system can get with this newspaper and its liberating vision for humanity.